Everybody, Rich with Prep U down here in the bunker, and today we are going to talk maps. Simple, ordinary, everyday maps. I love maps. I've always loved maps. I've loved maps and globes. Nice thing about maps for those of us that are preppers or going on vacations, maps are much easier to put in your glove box or your backpacks. Globes, not so much. They're kind of hard. But I just love the maps. I love reading it. I love finding out about it. Matter of fact, I taught map reading to all the scouts that went with us to Boundary Waters and Philmont. We'll get up close and personal with those maps in a second. But long before there was the internet, long before there was smartphones, long before there was GPS units, long before you had GPS in your car, there were maps. Just basic old everyday maps. Now these aren't ordinary everyday maps because these are plastic coated maps, because these, obviously, this would get wet and fall apart, and this would also get wet and fall apart. But all the manipulating of the maps and stuff like that in and out of backpacks and stuff, they would get torn, and then they would be no good, and you'd be out in the middle of nowhere not knowing where you're going to go. But just ordinary paper maps. I remember as a kid, my dad always had a stack of maps in the glove box in both his car and mom's car. It didn't matter. There were always maps in there. My grandfather had maps. Matter of fact, we had books of maps, encyclopedias that had maps in them and stuff like that, and I would just look at those all the time. Okay, call me a geek or whatever, but I think knowing how to read a map is so very important. So as a kid, I had paper maps. As an adult, we started to have GPS units that would go into your car. They'd suction cup to the windshield, and you could use those. And then we also started to have what was called Google Maps, where you could print a map. You could print your whole vacation. You leave from here, you go all the way up to, South Dakota, and then you could break those maps down. But as a grandparent now, we have GPS on your phone, we have GPS in your car, we have hotspots, we had all kinds of stuff to get you where you need to go. And we've kind of forgotten about, nowadays, the paper maps, which are still so very important and for so many reasons. I remember, you guys know that I'm currently a paraeducator at the local high school, but what you probably don't know is, as I was a fireman over the last 35 years, I substitute taught at the high school that I now work at. And it's interesting over the years to see the evolution of kids and their phones and what they know and what they use them for and stuff like that. And it was just recently, before I went full-time to work as a para, I remember we were talking about safety and security and how to take care of yourself, kind of like a prepper's class for high school kids. And I said to the kids, what I want you to do today, I want you to write down 5 things on a piece of paper that you would have to have if you went to a desert island. I would say 90% of the papers, number 1 was their phone. And I went through it and kind of read some of the other stuff, and some of the stuff made sense, some of the other stuff was goofy, no names on the paper. And I said this, everybody, we talked about it later at the end, near the end of class, and I said, so the number 1 item was your phone. Why your phone? And they said all kinds of reasons why they wanted their phones. And I said, if you're out somewhere lost on an island or in the desert or whatever, there's no cell service. They literally freaked out. Several of them, girls, started to cry. What do you mean I don't have cell service? I said, you have no cell service. You have no way to get a hold of anybody. You have no way to, talk to Siri about something. You can't get maps. You can't get anything. your phone is a brick and it's a waste of time to be in your back pocket. And they just lost their mind. They had no idea what I was talking about. But that's it. You tend to react to things that you think are going to be around with you, forever. Those of us that are old enough, you can remember black and white TV before color. Would you go back to black and white? Probably not. A lot of us, like growing up, my father had a car, a really nice Pontiac Bonneville, and the air conditioning he had was 460 air conditioning. You ask me right now, what was 460? You roll down 4 windows and you drive 60 miles an hour. That was 460 air conditioning. You wouldn't even think of having a car today without air conditioning. Now, today's kids can't imagine GPS not being there. Well, not only does GPS have a chance of not being there, GPS also has a way of not being correct. You hear horror stories all the time about people getting lost following their GPS. And as a matter of fact, let me tell you about a story that was just in the paper, and I paraphrase. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Indiana couple gets lost 177 miles from Las Vegas in the high desert. They were found after 7 days. Unfortunately, the husband passed away, and the wife was in such serious condition she had to be airlifted to Reno, Nevada, for the critical care unit there at the hospital. And they say, well, how could they get lost in the high desert and not be able to get their way out? Their GPS led them there, so the wife says, and then they lost service, and they were stuck. They didn't know which way to go. They were confused, and that's where they stuck, and that's where he died, unfortunately, and she almost perished. How many stories have you heard about people going the wrong direction because GPS told you to go that way, or getting to an area where GPS doesn't work, or your phone just dies, and for no other reason? It just dies. Now you're stuck where? Another thing about, using stuff like that, you drive the same roads to work every day. You use the same roads at highways every day to get to your vacation home or wherever you're going to go. What happens if you don't have GPS, depending on where you are, and the road you normally take is blocked? Now you don't know how to get around it. With maps, you get around it. All right? Maps are very, very important. Technology is great until it isn't, until it doesn't work, or until it malfunctions or whatever. That's why wherever I go, in all my vehicles, in all my backpacks, there are physical paper maps. You always need those maps. If you were hiking, you'd take a map, right? Because you want to know elevation, you want to know where water is, you want to know ways around and stuff like that. There are all kinds of maps, all right? You've got maps for distance. You've got relief maps and elevation maps. Elevation maps are these maps back here. There's road maps. There's specific location maps. There are political maps. There's all kinds of maps, but we're specifically talking about maps that are going to get you somewhere and get you there safely. So you can do all kinds of things. If you remember back, it wasn't that long ago, and I'll show you again, you can still do it, Google Maps, all right? You have your trip, you have it all set up from where you're going, or where you're coming from to where you're going, and then it prints the directions, and then I always would break it down a little bit smaller so that you could see exactly where you're going. This just happened to be Powers Lake in North Dakota. So these are extremely important to have. If you don't have that kind of a map, you can get yourself a road atlas. Now, this is great for the car because it's got every single state in it. I mean, I suppose you could put this in your backpack, but you don't really need it because you're not going to hike all over the world or all over the country with that. But if you're going hiking, and you can see this map right here, which is Philmont, which is all hiking, the importance of these maps are that they are relief maps. Let me pull the phone and let me show you these maps. Hopefully I don't mess it up too much. But as we come back here, you should be able to see all the little lines, and you should be able to see different numbers that talks about elevation, so you know that you go a specific direction. You're not going uphill, you're not going downhill, you're not going to get stuck somewhere. You can stay on a level plateau. If we come around over here, these are the boundary waters. This is around between Seagull and Knife. And you can see even in there, they've got the elevation marks, and you can see the water. You can actually see our travels and what we did. It also shows depth of water. Depending on what you're gonna go fishing for, it would really be nice if you had depth of water. You're not going after lake trout in 5 foot of water, all right? So that's nice to have. But these are the kind of maps you wanna have with you when you're canoeing, when you're hiking. In my car, in every one of my cars, like I told you, and we've talked about this in other videos, a lot of other videos, you want to have a map of the states you live in and the states all around you. All right? So in my backpack, I carry Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, I know it's further down, Tennessee, Iowa, Minnesota, and I also have one of the United States, and I do have Indiana, but I gave it to my son. He's using that one out of my backpack. So maps are extremely important. If you ever saw the movie Wrong Turn, it still creeps me out to think about that movie. You'll understand why you want to know where you're going, and you want to stay to, if not major highways, at least county highways. So in case something happens to you, you break down or whatever, get stuck in a snowdrift, there's going to be other people coming by. Police officers, highway workers, and stuff like that. Local residents will come by and you can flag them down. But I just want, to impress upon all of you that don't rely only on your GPS. Have a second way of finding your way around, be it around a traffic jam, a road accident, fallen trees, flooding. That can happen too. So maps are very important. I don't care what kind of map you have. I don't care if it's a commercially produced, plastic-coated map or a map printed on your home computer of what you're doing, or you throw one of these great big things, which has some really nice roads and shows waterways and stuff like that in your car when you go. Have a second, maybe a third way of doing this. But maps are so very important. And if you don't know how to read a map, a relief map, learn how to find a video on YouTube or wherever, and learn how to read a map before you go hiking or camping or whatever. It's really important to know. And as we did here, map out your route, and along the way, mark where you're at, okay? Especially if you have kids with you, if something happens to you and they don't know where they're at, that could be a problem. And teach them the map along the way. Also, whenever you go on a trip, let somebody know where you're going, what route you're taking, how long you think you're going to be there, and that you will contact them along the way, especially if it's across country. It's good to let people know what's going on. So please prepare yourself for your trips, wherever there be, wherever they're going to be, excuse me, with secondary way of finding the way to where you're going to go, and that's with printed maps. Throw them in your glove box, throw them in your backpack, throw them in your car kit in your trunk. Just have them with you wherever you go, and tell somebody where you're going. That's so important. So thank you for watching. Hope this helps you go out and get some maps for your cars, or learn how to read a map, and be prepared for your next trip. Subscribers, thank you. We really appreciate it. It's really nice to have you there. It's really important. And please comment on this video whether you liked it or not, or if you have other ideas about maps that we can just pass on to other people. And like we always do, end our video by saying, be aware of your surroundings. In this way, you will know your surroundings, what's around you. You'll also know where you're going, and that's kind of important too. Please have 72 hours of food and water and medicine available to bug out or relocate or evacuate, and please also have 3 to 6 to 9 months to a year of food, medicine, water, and personal hygiene products for you, your wife, your kids, your dog, your grandkids. And be prepared to shelter in place if you have to for a while. So again, thank you. Buy some maps. Print some maps. Just get some maps. Take care. Bye.